Luggage is easy.
We're going to Greece! Cody's back there somewhere. Oh, I was looking at the wrong side.
We go. Let the suck begin for today.
Long travel day ahead of us. Hey. There we go. First one.
Going to Houston.
Yay.
Fun.
Flight attendants, please be seated for departure.
I thought this was a phone case.
Cody thought all these chocolate bars were phone cases.
Great idea. Phone cases that are chocolate. I mean,
Edible phone cases.
I mean.
We just arrived in Athens. We're on the bus to our Airbnb. We have officially made it to Greece. First meal in Greece. Heroes. Okay, so we just ate our first meal in Greece. And now we're killing time before we check in our Airbnb, and we look like the biggest tourists with our luggage and our neck pillows. But we're happy to be here, and we're gonna go see the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. Oh, that's the Acropolis. This is our balcony. Are you serious?
Wow.
I am so excited. Wow, spiral staircase. Oh my gosh. Wow. Oh. I'm about to sit in the air conditioning for at least 10 minutes first.
That's her?
That's her in person. Oh my gosh. What? We're going into the National Archaeological Museum. It's huge. We'll be in here for a few hours probably. The National Archaeological Museum did not disappoint. It had a lot of super cool artifacts. Here are just a few of my favorites. Here are some stone tools from the Paleolithic age. This is the world's largest Neolithic artifact ever discovered. This is a Minoan painting depicting bull leaping. We saw some super famous frescoes recovered from Akrotiri, the ancient Minoan city that got buried and preserved by a volcanic eruption. This volcanic eruption may have even been responsible for wiping out the entire Minoan civilization. They also had some plaster casts of beds recovered from Akrotiri. This is the famous funeral mask of Agamemnon. This is actually pictured in your textbook. It's named after the mythical Greek king that led the Greeks in the Trojan War. It most likely covered the face of a Mycenaean leader, though archaeologists are unsure which leader it was. Here's a front and back gold funerary covering for an infant. These Mycenaean swords and daggers were found in the grave in Mycenae from the 16th century BC. These are clay tablets with Linear B Mycenaean writing on them. Unlike Linear A that the Minoans used, we've actually cracked the code on how to read Linear B, so these tablets were actually translated so that I could read what they said. They were mostly inventories, lists, and tax documents, and they provided important information about what Mycenaean society was like. This clay tablet documents the crew of a ship. It contains a list of soldiers and a list of 30 rowers. This clay tablet is an inventory of shepherds and their herds. The clay tablets on the top row record aromatic herbs such as cumin, coriander, fennel, sesame, and saffron associated with the names of the male workers. This one contains an order made by a young woman. She ordered a quantity of her wool to be treated for coloring. This clay tablet records a quantity of oil. This is the actual body armor and shield of a Greek soldier used during the Persian Wars. This one was super cool. This is Miltiades' helmet, the Greek general that helped the Greeks win the Battle of Marathon by giving the order to overlap their shields and charge at the Persians. You can actually see his name inscribed in his helmet if you look closely. This helmet was given by Miltiades as an offering to Zeus at the Temple of Olympian Zeus. Another one of my favorite artifacts that I got to see was actual arrows recovered from the Battle of Thermopylae, which was the battle that the 300 elite Spartans stayed behind to delay the Persians during the Persian Wars. This was a model of a Greek trireme, which were the naval battleships that were used by Athens in the Battle of Salamis during the Persian Wars. This famous statue of Zeus or Poseidon is actually in your textbook. Greeks invented the art of theater. These are actual Greek theater masks used in ancient plays. Since actors would play multiple roles, these masks helped the audience understand character changes. After the National Archaeological Museum, we grabbed some quick dinner and took it back to our Airbnb so we could watch the sunset on the balcony with a lovely view of the Acropolis.
Going to bed right after this.
Oh, my finger is what? Wow. We started off the next day with a food tour. This was hands down one of our very favorite things we did on this trip, and now we plan to do food tours everywhere we travel. It was so amazing. It was a 4-hour long experience. It was only $60 for 4 hours of eating and basically getting a tour around Athens, and our tour guide Pascal was absolutely incredible. If you're ever in Athens, you need to book the tour with Pascal through Airbnb.
So there are many coffee chains here in Greece.
We are trying Greek coffee. It was really good. Okay, what are these called?
Koulouri.
It's like sesame bread.
It's very good.
It's good.
So they change all of that up?
Yeah. It's too much, I know. You know what? It pays off.
So it's like a pastrami cheese pie. Does it have a name?
Burrata.
Okay.
Very good.
It's good. The different spices.
These are vegetables dried under the sun, so it's like zucchini, aubergine, tomatoes, pepper, okra. So because Athens is a really big city.
Pascal then took us through the meat market, which had really cheap organic meat, which you don't see very often in America. Very cool.
So you get chicken wings from 99.
We then went through the fish market, which I was actually super glad that we had to wear masks in there because it was very stinky.
Wow, it's all so cheap too.
Those are big shrimp. Now we're eating cheese pie. This food tour is amazing.
It looks so good.
I'm gonna get your first bite.
Very good.
This
There you go.
you take a bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
A sweet. What is this called? Do you have that video here?
This is called sweet burrata.
Really good. The guy brought it out on the house for us. We're in a fruit and vegetable market. Taste testing the olives. He's trying some olives. I don't like olives, but.
Oh.
Is that your favorite one?
Probably not a very good video, but yes.
You said this kind or the strongest kind, the most famous one?
If you want to buy, just an advice. Here it's fresh, it's not like in can. Okay, in can. So you choose which one you want and then make it like vacuum. You can keep it for
Oh, cool.
selection. Which one you like the most.
Yes, I get those a lot at home.
Yeah. Chicken is marinated with in olive oil, oregano, and turmeric. These are the zucchini balls. So as I said before, instead of meat, sometimes we use either tomato or zucchini. So they're really, really good. And in the middle, you'll find the famous tzatziki, which is a yogurt sauce. Okay. And this is a famous Greek salad. So for all those people who listen to me from America, please, we don't put lettuce on the top. No lettuce. It's not a Greek salad. Okay. Greek salad is like this.
Yes.
Thank you.
Calamari.
Calamari. Ooh, hot.
Very graceful.
Very hot.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Wow, that is
We
very
have
good.
to repeat the scene. Yeah.
Okay, so he just said that's his favorite.
My favorite I've had so far.
Calamari.
Calamari.
So many pigeons. Oh my gosh.
Dessert?
Yes! Dessert. We're going to get dessert.
So around Acropolis, you don't really have high buildings because it's not allowed out of respect to the monument.
For dessert, we had loukoumades, which are essentially Greek donuts. It's dough balls soaked and drizzled in honey, sprinkled with cinnamon. It was delicious.
Yum. We just got done with our food tour, and that was
Amazing.
the best experience. Like, I'm so glad we did that. Our tour guide was incredible.
So much food.
I'm really full. That was 4 hours worth of stuff. So, and now we're walking down a really pretty street. We've made it to the Acropolis. We're gonna go to the Acropolis Museum, which is back this way, and then we're gonna explore the Acropolis after. Really hot. Okay, bye. We're in the Acropolis Museum. What did you just do?
Let's just say they cleaned the glass really good here.
He ran smack into one of these, just like straight into it. Oh my gosh.
The Acropolis Museum had some really cool artifacts from the Acropolis, such as Athenian coins, pottery, and plenty of marble statues, such as these pillars of Athena that were found on the Erechtheion and replaced with replicas because of damage. This was a marble statue that had been damaged from fire. They believe this happened whenever the Persians burned Athens down during the Persian Wars. The Acropolis is the highest point in an ancient Greek city-state. This stone-walled fortress was the city's last line of defense against invasion, so if they were under attack they could all retreat up to the Acropolis. The Acropolis of Athens is the most famous Acropolis. It is home to some world-famous ancient ruins. After Athens was destroyed during the Persian Wars, Pericles rebuilt the Acropolis with richly decorated temples and monuments. The city's leaders poured money into beautifying the city with the finest architecture, art, and sculpture. Pericles transformed Athens into one of the most magnificent cities in the ancient world. It's time. We go in. We're hiking up. I'm sweaty already. This is the Odeon, which is a theater that hosted Greek plays and Roman spectacles. And it was built in 161 AD. Today it's still used for performances. You can actually see down there, they're preparing for a performance.
Non, non, on voit des ruines. Parce que les verrouilles, ils sont venus à terre.
Behind me is the temple of Athena Nike. Athena is the goddess of Athens. It's what Athens was named after. And they thought that Athena, worshipping her, would bring them victory. And so this was built about 425 BC, and it was adorned with lots of statues of Athena on the outside. And in the inside, they commemorated a statue to commemorate their victory in the Battle of Plataea, which we have studied. Something interesting, it says the Athenians purposely broke the statue's wings to force Athena to stay to protect their city. You can see the columns are the Ionic style, which has like the scroll at the top. We've also studied that. Also, the statue on the inside is also meant to ensure victory over the Spartans in the Peloponnesian War. Behind me is the Propylaea, which is the entrance to the Acropolis. It had like a central hallway and then side wings that had art and where they would house like VIP guests.
I think what you have on is
and you can see the columns that they're the Doric style, which we've studied. So we're about to go in. Okay, so we just passed through the Propylaea. You can see it used to be covered, and it was actually colored like light blue or painted light blue with stars on the ceiling. And this would have actually been a really bright building with floral patterns on some places. There she is. Parthenon. We're here.
Made it.
I'm sweaty. This is amazing.
So worth it.
So cool to see it in person.
Show them the view.
Behind me is the Erechthion, which you can see there are 6 pillars of Athena. There used to be a 30-foot statue of Athena that stood somewhere between the Propylaea and the Parthenon next to the Erechtheion. You can still see the remains of the 3 stones where the statue once stood. These pillars of Athena are actually the replicas. I'll show you the video of the actual ones that were in the Acropolis Museum. But just over the span of 50 years, their faces were damaged by pollution, so that's why they had to put the replicas there to save them. It's really sad.
Okay, so I just found out that all of these stones in front of the Erechtheion are actually the remains of a Mycenaean temple that was built centuries before the Erechtheion. It's pretty cool. Those are really old.
So that's an olive tree, and this marks the location where legend says that Athena planted the first olive tree as a gift to Athens. So that's pretty cool. This is the other side of the Erechtheion. You can see the Ionic style columns. The view up here is amazing. I'll show you. Obviously you can see all of Athens because you're at the highest point of Athens on the Acropolis.
Our Airbnb is somewhere by that mountain.
Building, you see what
Okay guys, I found it. Our Airbnb is right there. That brown one, right there with the rocks.
Yep.
We've been trying to get a picture,
Okay guys, this is obviously the most famous thing on the Acropolis. It stands 490 feet above sea level at the highest point of the Acropolis. This is the Parthenon. It is the largest Doric temple in Greece. It is 228 feet long and 101 feet wide. So on each end, so like this is an end, there are 8 columns. And on the sides there are 17 columns, so altogether there are 46 columns. There are 19 inner columns, so you can see some of them still standing on the inside. So this would have been really magnificent back 2,500 years ago when it was built. It would have been very beautiful, and on the inside there would have been a lot of statues and artwork that were painted bright colors. This awe-inspiring temple was built around 450 BC. it would have taken about 10 years to build. Something interesting, if you look at the columns here, they look like they are perfectly straight and parallel, but that's actually not true. The architects knew that completely straight columns look like they're pointing outward, so they're actually tilted inward slightly to keep it from looking like they're bending out from each other, and also to keep it from looking like it's sagging. And yeah, that's Parthenon, guys. The viewpoint from the south end of the Acropolis allows you to see a lot of the ancient ruins from above, such as the Panathenaic Stadium where the first modern Olympic Games were held, the Temple of Olympian Zeus, the Theater of Dionysus, which was the world's first and oldest theater where plays and dramas were born, right next to the Theater of Dionysus, you can see the Temple of Asclepius. And next to that, you can see the prison of Socrates, which is where they believe Socrates was imprisoned.
That was really cool to see in person. Such a cool experience to be here.
A lot of history.
I was going to say, I see you have a book right here. I was going to try to zoom in, but it won't let me.
We're currently on Areopagus Hill, which is also called Mars Hill. So, according to Greek mythology, Ares, the god of war, was tried here by the gods for the murder of Poseidon. It's also one of the best places to get a view of the Acropolis. And also the Apostle Paul here made one of his most famous speeches, and people would meet here for philosophy and law. Like we did every night in Athens, we raced back to our Airbnb so we could watch the sunset from our balcony before heading to dinner.
Okay, this is grilled cheese. Literally like just blocks of cheese and you grill it. And that sounds like my dream, so.
Let's see what happens.
Oh my gosh. That is dangerous. I'm gonna order that every meal. Wow. That was good.
It's a mountain of food. There was more on that when we started.
This says serves 2 on it.
Yeah.
We're already like halfway done. What? Okay, well we did pretty good.
I know they say Arby's has the meats. This place has the meats.
Oh my gosh, I will cut that out. We got a cookie, and this is so good. It's like a chocolate chip hazelnut cookie.
Very good.
It's so good. Yay. Day 3.
Coffee Berry is basically like the Starbucks of Athens.
Let's go.
Pretty good. Very sweet.
Ooh.
It's good though.
It's good. Okay, this is an H&M, guys. This is like the prettiest H&M ever.
Greece H&M hits different.
We're shopping even though we can't fit anything in our bags. But
No space.
This H&M was 5 floors. This is a really pretty street. We are currently exploring Hadrian's library, which is pretty self-explanatory. It was a library built in 132 BC for the Roman Emperor Hadrian. It was part of Hadrian's plan to rebuild the city of Athens. And yeah, self-explanatory, it's a library, so it housed books of papyrus. There's the Acropolis. Okay, so behind me is the Tetraconch Church, which was actually built in the inner courtyard of Hadrian's Library a little bit later on in the 480s. Over here, you can see some of the mosaic floors that are still preserved. Okay, so that circle and that little circle with the columns, this would have been where that Tetraconch church is that I just talked about in the courtyard. And then over here is the southeast auditorium, and here is the northeast auditorium where they would have had lectures. And a lot of it is actually still not visible because it's underneath these two streets. Behind me is the remains of a church that was built at the entrance of Hadrian's Library. It was built in the 12th century AD. It's really beautiful. You can see that the tops of the columns are in the Corinthian style. They're cute. So cute.
The Roman Agora was constructed when Athens had become part of the Roman Empire and was built using funds provided by Roman leaders Julius Caesar and Augustus. The space within the ancient agora was reduced due to the erection of Roman buildings. The ancient agora could no longer offer the space required for trade and business, so the Romans constructed their own agora between 19 and 11 BC. It was a central marketplace where Athenians shopped, traded, conducted business, and where citizens met to interact through discussion and conversation.
We are at the Roman Agora, so it was built in about 11 BC. It was just an open air market, so you could come here to shop. It was also like a meeting place. So there are two entrances. The main entrance was this gate over here. It's called the Gate of Athena. It was actually a gift from Julius Caesar and Augustus. And this entire place was actually built using the funds of Julius Caesar and Augustus. So this was the main entrance. You can see they have the Doric columns. And then I'm going to jump to the side. Alright, and then on the eastern end, there's another entrance. And you can see there's an octagonal building over here. It had a sundial in it, so it was actually used to predict the weather and tell time. And then it was used as a church eventually. So yeah, that's the Roman Agora. This is where the public latrines were. That means public toilets. Yes, they would go to the bathroom in public, just sit and chill and chat. Right here in the ancient agora, which would have been the center of Athens, the heart of Athens, you could come here to pretty much do anything. You could shop, you could come to watch entertainment like plays and performances. Businesses were here, the government met here, so there would have been like important government buildings, and people would have come here for democracy to meet and discuss law, to vote, pretty much anything. So really super cool place to get to experience. So I'll show you around. I'm currently standing in front of the Stoa of Adelos, which would have been like a shopping mall. It is about 400 feet long, and it's lined on the bottom with Doric columns, and at the top there are Ionic columns. So yeah, this would have been a really social place to shop, and then there would have been businesses on the top.
So that was actually a replica of the Stoa of Adelos, and inside of the replica is a museum with some really cool artifacts. Athens was a democracy. Athenians used this machine, known as a Caryatids, to elect officials. Each eligible male placed a token with his name on it in one of the slots. A series of balls were then released from a tube to determine whose tokens would be chosen. This particular Caryatids was actually used to choose who was going to serve for jury duty. Ostracism was another element of their democracy. Ostracism was enforced banishment. Athenians used it to prevent an individual from gaining too much power. Each citizen carved the name of someone he believed to be dangerous or have too much power on a piece of pottery called an ostrakon. If the same name appeared often enough, the name of the person had to leave Athens. He did not lose citizenship or property or wealth, but he was forbidden to return for 10 years. There were some really famous Greek politicians' names on these ostrakons. That is why I was freaking out in the background. This was a Spartan shield used during a famous battle. These are essentially ancient barbecue pits. They had ancient Athenian coins and an ancient high chair seat for a child or a baby. Okay, so these columns here were the middle stoa, so this was added in the 180 BCs to the agora because they needed more space as Athens was growing. Something I forgot to mention, but the Stoa of Adelos over here is actually a replica. So this is what it looked like before they built the replica, but this is what it would have looked like back then. It would have been similar to the Stoa of Adelos. And then if you look over there, the red stone, they said that that is part of the original foundation. So this would have been 500 feet long of columns. This is the top of a Corinthian style column. Obviously it was huge, and there were actually 12 of these that lined all the way up to the Odeon, which is a theater. And so this is actually the site of where like the first tragedies and Greek plays were performed in the open air. So that's kind of where it all started. I'm standing in front of the Tholos, which would have been a really important government building here in the ancient agora. So it would have housed the 50 ministers, which were like ahead of the council. And actually a third of them would stay the night here because that way they would always have like an official on duty here. And so if someone was shopping and they felt like they got shortchanged, they could actually come here to dispute it because it was where the weights and measures were kept. And it would have been a round building with like 6 interior columns. So something else you could come to the agora for is to worship. So behind me is the temple of Hephaestus, which is the best preserved temple in all of Athens. This was started to be built around 450 BC and it was dedicated to the god Hephaestus. See, I'll show you the footage, but it has a really good view of the rest of the agora.
Like the shade in the park.
What's his name?
Aristotle.
Aristotle. Aristotle. You hungry? Eat it. Oh my gosh, he's so cute. I'm sorry, I'll get out of your way. He's fast. Okay, this is the new Bouleuterion, which was built in the 5th century BC. So this is where the Boule, or the council of 500 members, would come and they would like create laws and things like that for the assembly of all citizens to be able to vote on. So this is the old Bouleuterion. So this is just same thing I just talked about, but this was where they would do it before the new one was built. Say that again?
This is where Aristotle lives.
Yeah, the old Bouleuterion. That's where Aristotle lives. Our new friend.
Copyright, trademark.
Jeez, okay, behind me is the Odeon of Agrippa, which is where they would hold like plays and musical performances. It was built in 15 BC in honor of Emperor Augustus. It actually got destroyed by a fire in 150 AD, and then it was rebuilt. And that's when these columns with the statues on them were built. And then the original one would have had the 12 columns with the Corinthian style that we saw earlier. And it could actually hold, the original one could hold 1,000 people. There was about 20 rows. But then the newer one was a little bit smaller. It could hold about 500 people. It was more of like a lecture hall. Yeah. This behind me is called the post-Herulian Wall. So basically after the Herulian tribe, it was a Germanic tribe, invaded Greece, the Roman people pretty much just took what they could from different buildings, different statues, and threw it all together in a wall without mortar to try to keep other invaders out. At one point this wall was 30 feet high. But after that, it kind of, this area of the Agora kind of became like, I guess, like a ghost town. And so bandits would come, people would come, and they would use it as a quarry to get material for building other things. That's why a lot of it doesn't remain today. It's because it got taken and used in other buildings. Okay, behind me is the Church of the Holy Apostles, and the building of this actually kind of like signifies the revival of the Agora, and it was built in remembrance of Paul, who was one of the apostles, and he was known for teaching here in the Agora, teaching Christianity to people. It was built during the Byzantine Empire in the 1000 AD, and so yeah, you can see a lot of Byzantine influence in the architecture. I'm currently standing on the Panathenaic Way, which was the main road here, and it connected the Agora with the Acropolis, which is behind you. This was known like for having their parades and things like that, and so the main parade was the Panathenaic Parade, and it was every year on Athena's birthday to celebrate her, and they would have dancing and music, like tambourines, things like that, and they would line the streets with bleachers so people could watch, and then there would be a float, and the float actually carried like a garment on the back of it that was for Athena, so they would bring it and put it on the statue of Athena. And then behind is the Acropolis, so this road goes all the way up to the Acropolis. We're walking through the National Garden. It's really pretty. Alright, we're currently standing in the Panathenaic Stadium, which is where the first modern Olympic Games were held in 1896. It is the only stadium in the entire world made completely of marble, and it was built in 330 BC and can hold about 50,000 spectators.
When was the most recent time that Athens hosted the Olympics?
1896.
2004!
We are now at the Temple of Olympian Zeus, which was a temple in honor of Zeus. It had 104 Corinthian columns. Now only 16 of those remain. Construction began in the 6th century BC, and it wasn't finished until over 600 years later under Emperor Hadrian. And then it when barbaric tribes invaded, it was kind of ransacked and used as a quarry, and now this is all that's left. It would have been really big. Really big.
How big?
Really big. Okay, so this is all that's left. This is the other side of the temple. But if you look, you can see where the foundation was and where the temple would have been all the way around to the back. So really big.
As mentioned earlier, the Temple of Olympian Zeus is where Miltiades gave his helmet as an offering to Zeus. Right next to the Temple of Olympian Zeus is Hadrian's Arch. It was built to celebrate the arrival of the Roman Emperor Hadrian and to honor him for what he had done for their city.
Those trees said serve!
On our way back to our Airbnb, we stopped to watch the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. It was super interesting to watch the ritual. There were a lot of foot shuffles and foot scoots. It was about 15 minutes worth, so I did fast forward, but I tried to show you the entire ritual. Last sunset on our balcony. You know, it already went down, but it's still pretty. Oh, alright, we're having dinner on our balcony again because we didn't want to go anywhere but here. Yeah, last meal in Athens. We leave at 4 in the morning, so wish us luck.